The first rays of dawn crept through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Alexander Rodriguez's Manhattan penthouse, casting long shadows across meticulously arranged surfaces that spoke of precision and success. At 42, he was a living testament to the American dream, a self-made millionaire whose tech innovations had revolutionized digital communication. But success was a cold companion. Alexander's reflection in the glass revealed a man carefully constructed. Sharp jawline, tailored Brioni suit, eyes that held stories of struggle behind their calculated calm. Every achievement was a brick in a wall he'd been building since childhood, a fortress against the pain of abandonment. His story began in the Bronx, where poverty was not just a condition but a constant companion. Maria Rodriguez, his mother, was a force of nature, a woman who worked 3 jobs to ensure her son would have opportunities she never had. A seamstress by day, a restaurant cleaner by night, and a home care worker on weekends, she embodied resilience. Miguel Rodriguez, Alexander's father, was a ghost, a memory that flickered at the edges of childhood recollections: strong hands, a warm laugh, then sudden absence. The narrative of his departure was a wound that never fully healed. Growing up, Alexander learned early that survival meant self-reliance. While other kids played baseball or attended family barbecues, he buried himself in books. Mathematics became his language, technology his escape. Each academic achievement was a silent rebellion against the narrative of limitation. "You'll be something special," his mother would whisper, her hands rough from years of hard labor, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and unspoken pain. The family dynamics were complex. Maria never spoke ill of Miguel, creating a mysterious silence around his absence. Relatives would occasionally whisper fragments, something about debts, about protection, about a sacrifice too complicated for a child to understand. By the time Alexander reached high school, he had constructed an impenetrable persona. Brilliant, driven, emotionally distant. Relationships were transactions, friendships were strategic networks, and success was the only currency that mattered. His first startup emerged from a college dorm room, a communication platform that would eventually be valued at millions. Each investor meeting, each technology conference, was another step away from the cramped Bronx apartment. Another step towards proving that he needed no one. Little did he know that the story of his father was far more complex than the simple narrative of abandonment he had constructed. Layers of truth were waiting to be uncovered, ready to challenge everything he believed about family, sacrifice, and love. Fragments of memory. The spaces between memories were always the most painful. Alexander remembered moments in sharp, disconnected snapshots: his father's large hands, the smell of construction dust, a laugh that seemed to fill their tiny apartment, and then emptiness. 5-year-old Alexander stood by the window, watching the street below, waiting. His mother's hushed conversations with relatives carried undertones of something broken. "He did it to protect us," they would say, a phrase that meant nothing to a child who simply wanted his father back. School became a battlefield of unspoken stories. During Father's Day celebrations, Alexander would sit silent, crafting elaborate cards for his mother instead. The other children, with their fathers in pressed shirts and Sunday ties, seemed to inhabit a different world. "Where's my dad?" he would ask Maria, his voice small. Her response was always the same: a gentle touch, a redirect. "You are strong, Mijo. You are enough." Survival became an art form. Maria worked relentlessly, transforming their modest existence into a fortress of possibility. Alexander learned to be quiet, to be helpful. He watched her count pennies, divide grocery lists into necessities and dreams. By 3rd grade, he discovered books could be escape routes. Libraries became sanctuaries. While other children played outside, Alexander devoured stories of heroes who overcame impossible odds. Each book was a lesson, each page a strategy for survival. Mathematics became his first true language. Numbers didn't abandon. Numbers were predictable, reliable. When classmates talked about weekend baseball games and fishing trips with fathers, Alexander would solve complex equations, creating worlds where he controlled every variable. The neighborhood whispered stories, fragments about gambling debts, hints of something dangerous that had forced his father away. But children understand more than adults realize. Alexander heard the unspoken, the mix of protection and pain in his mother's silences. Birthdays became complicated rituals. No father's signature on report cards. No paternal advice about navigating schoolyard politics. He learned to be both son and protector, watching his mother's exhaustion, determined to change their narrative. By middle school, abandonment transformed into ambition. Each academic achievement was a silent rebellion. Each scholarship opportunity a middle finger to circumstances. He would create a life where vulnerability was a choice, not a necessity. "I'll make something of myself" became his unspoken mantra. A promise made to the child who once waited by the window, hoping for a father who never returned the architecture of success. Technology was Alexander Rodriguez's battlefield, and innovation his most potent weapon. His first startup, Connection, emerged from a cramped Imite dorm room, a communication platform that would redefine digital interaction. Initial investors were skeptical. A kid from the Bronx, with no traditional tech pedigree, pitching a revolutionary communication algorithm. But Alexander's pitch was more than a presentation, it was a declaration of possibility. "We're not just building an app," he would say, eyes blazing with conviction. "We're creating connections that transcend traditional boundaries." Connexion's breakthrough came with an AI-driven communication protocol that could predict user interaction patterns. Within 3 years, the platform attracted over 50 million users. Tech giants began circling, offering acquisition deals that would make most entrepreneurs dizzy. At 28, Alexander sold Connection for $35 million. The financial success was remarkable, but for him, it represented something deeper, a systematic dismantling of the limitations he'd inherited. Each professional milestone was a calculated move. While his peers chased quick money, Alexander was building an ecosystem. His next ventures, a cybersecurity firm, an educational technology platform, an AI-driven healthcare communication system, weren't just businesses. They were statements. By 35, his net worth exceeded $50 million. Forbes featured him as a technology disruptor. Venture capitalists sought his insights. Stanford and Might invited him to lecture. The boy from the Bronx had become an inspiration. Yet beneath the success, an internal landscape remained turbulent. Professional achievements were armor, not healing. Each milestone was another brick in the wall he'd constructed against vulnerability. Relationships remained transactional. Networking was strategic. Personal connections were carefully managed, never allowed to penetrate the carefully constructed exterior. His assistant, Sarah, understood this complexity. "You build systems that connect millions," she once observed, "but keep yourself isolated." Alexander's response was a practiced smile revealing nothing. The irony wasn't lost on him. A man who created communication technology struggled with the most fundamental human connection, understanding his own emotional terrain. The wealth provided options, but it couldn't fill the fundamental absence he'd carried since childhood. Success was a magnificent distraction, a narrative he'd meticulously crafted to avoid confronting the deeper wounds of abandonment. Little did he know that his most significant discovery wouldn't come from a boardroom or a tech innovation, but from an unexpected confrontation with his past, a moment of unexpected truth. The GPS coordinates were precise, almost clinical, like Alexander's approach to everything in life. Queens, a modest neighborhood that seemed worlds away from his Manhattan existence. He sat in his Tesla, fingers ripping the steering wheel, watching a figure through the house's front window. The man moved with a deliberate, weary rhythm, cleaning, mopping, a shadow of what Alexander remembered. Miguel Rodriguez. His father. Something compelled Alexander to exit the car. The meticulously planned confrontation he'd imagined 1,000 times over suddenly felt inadequate. Reality had a way of demolishing rehearsed scenarios. The front door was slightly ajar. He pushed it open, the sound of a mop swishing against linoleum filling the silence. "What are you doing?" The words escaped before he could control them, sharp, loaded with decades of unresolved anger. Miguel turned. Time seemed to fracture in that moment. The strong construction worker Alexander remembered had transformed. Older, smaller, humbled, tears mixed with the soapy water at his feet, creating a surreal tableau of vulnerability. "But I'm cleaning," Miguel responded, his voice a mixture of shame and defiance. Alexander noticed the details. The modest house. The cleaning supplies. His own father, once a proud construction worker, now working as a cleaner in what appeared to be his stepmother's home. For Elena, the name felt foreign on his tongue. Miguel's hands trembled slightly. The mop continued its rhythmic movement, a desperate attempt at maintaining normalcy in this charged moment. Sometimes survival requires dignity in unexpected forms, Miguel whispered. The statement hung in the air complex, layered. A lifetime of unspoken sacrifices compressed into a single sentence. Alexander's carefully constructed world, built on narratives of abandonment, of professional success as compensation for personal loss, began to crack. The man before him was not the villain of his childhood stories. He was human, flawed, struggling. Tears threatened a shocking betrayal of the emotional control he'd maintained for decades. Why? The question carried the weight of a 5-year-old's confusion and a 42-year-old's demand for truth. Miguel looked up. Their eyes met, a collision of past and present, of misunderstanding and potential reconciliation. The encounter was not an ending. It was a beginning, the weight of unspoken sacrifices. Miguel's story unfolded like a delicate map of survival, each line revealing layers of complexity Alexander had never imagined. I didn't leave because I wanted to, Miguel began, his hands folding and unfolding nervously. I left to protect you. The narrative emerged in fragments. Years ago, Miguel had borrowed money from dangerous men, local loan sharks who operated outside the law. Gambling debts accumulated, turning into a nightmare that threatened to consume his family. They knew where we lived, he explained. Your mother and you were targets. Every day, I feared they would come. The decision to disappear was not a choice, but a calculated survival strategy. Miguel worked multiple jobs, sending money through hidden channels. He communicated with Maria's relatives, ensuring they could pass small amounts to support his son without directly revealing his location. Elena, his second wife, became an unexpected ally. She provided shelter, helped him maintain anonymity, and understood the complexity of his situation. Their relationship was built on mutual understanding of survival's difficult choices. I heard you became successful, Miguel said, a mixture of pride and pain in his voice. Your mother never wanted you to know the full truth. She believed you should build your life without the burden of my mistakes. Alexander listened, decades of anger slowly dissolving. The narrative of abandonment he'd constructed was now revealed as a protective shield, a father's ultimate act of love. Hidden sacrifices emerged. Miguel worked menial jobs, lived modestly, sent money anonymously. Every cleaning job, every difficult moment was a silent payment towards protecting his family's future. I never stopped loving you, Miguel whispered. Leaving was the hardest decision of my life. The revelation transformed everything. Abandonment was no longer a simple story of rejection, but a complex tapestry of protection, love, and survival. Alexander realized the true meaning of sacrifice, not grand gestures, but quiet, painful choices made in silence, the bridge of understanding. Reconciliation is never a single moment, but a delicate process of rebuilding trust thread by fragile thread. Maria Rodriguez became the unexpected mediator. Her quiet wisdom, accumulated through years of silent strength, created a space for healing. She invited Miguel to their family dinners, carefully orchestrating moments of connection. The first dinner was uncomfortable. Silence hung heavy between Alexander and Miguel. Years of unspoken pain created invisible walls. Elena sat quietly, her presence a testament to understanding complex human emotions. Tell me about your work, Alexander finally said, breaking the silence. Miguel spoke about construction projects from years past, his hands moving animatedly. Alexander recognized his own passionate gestures, a genetic echo he'd never noticed before. Slowly, conversations deepened. Miguel shared stories about his early years, his dreams, his struggles. Alexander listened, discovering a father who was human, flawed, vulnerable, yet deeply loving. Financial restoration became Alexander's first act of reconciliation. He didn't just forgive, he transformed practical realities. He purchased a construction company, offering Miguel a leadership role that restored his professional dignity. Not charity, Alexander explained. Recognition of your experience. Miguel's eyes filled with tears, a mixture of pride, gratitude, and healing. The rebuilding wasn't linear. Some days were difficult. Old wounds surfaced unexpectedly, but they learned to navigate emotional landscapes together, two men understanding that love wasn't about perfection, but persistent connection. Family gatherings became sacred rituals. Maria would watch, silent tears of joy marking her own healing journey. Elena integrated seamlessly, her compassion a bridge between complicated histories. Alexander realized forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. It was about understanding, about recognizing that human stories are rarely black and white, they're intricate tapestries of survival, love, and resilience. "We're not just rebuilding a relationship," Miguel said one evening. "We're rewriting our family's narrative, the wisdom of healing." Understanding replaced anger. Alexander's life transformed from a carefully constructed fortress of achievement to a more nuanced landscape of human connection. His professional approach shifted dramatically. Where once he saw business as a battlefield, he now understood it as a collaborative ecosystem. Mentorship programs emerged from his companies, supporting young entrepreneurs from challenging backgrounds. Each initiative became a reflection of his own journey, proving that success is not just about individual achievement, but about lifting others. Maria watched her son's transformation with quiet pride. The anger that had defined his younger years melted into a deep, compassionate understanding. Family became more than a biological connection, it became a chosen, intentional relationship. Key lessons crystallized. 1. Sacrifice often looks different than we expect. Miguel's love was not traditional. It was strategic, protective, a shield constructed through difficult choices. Alexander learned that love manifests in complex, sometimes invisible ways. 2. Success is more than financial achievement. Wealth became a tool for healing, not just personal accumulation. Alexander redirected significant resources into community programs, educational initiatives for children from single-parent households. 3. Vulnerability is strength. The carefully constructed emotional walls he'd built began to crumble. Vulnerability became his new form of resiliency, a radical acceptance of human complexity. Miguel's influence extended beyond personal healing. Alexander began speaking at conferences, sharing not just his technological innovations, but his personal story of reconciliation. "Our greatest innovations," he would say, "come from understanding, not isolation." The Rodriguez family became a testament to transformation. Maria, once a silent survivor, now spoke openly about resilience. Miguel found professional dignity. Elena became a bridge of understanding. Alexander's most significant innovation was not a technological platform, but a renewed understanding of human connection. Forgiveness, he realized, was not a destination. It was a continuous journey of compassion, understanding, and intentional love, the power of redemption. Alexander Rodriguez stood on the stage, not as a tech millionaire, but as a storyteller of human resilience. The annual TED Talk audience listened, captivated by a narrative that transcended success and failure. "Success is not about money," he began. "It's about understanding." His journey became a beacon for those wrestling with family complexities, generational pain, and the challenging path of forgiveness. The Rodriguez family's transformation was living proof that healing is possible, that love can rebuild what seemed irreparably broken. 3 core messages emerged from their story. 1. Perspective changes everything. What once seemed like abandonment was revealed as profound protection. Miguel's seemingly impossible choice was an act of ultimate love, sacrificing personal connection to ensure his son's safety. 2. Healing is a collective journey. Reconciliation wasn't a solo mission. Maria's wisdom, Elena's compassion, and Alexander's willingness to listen created a collective healing process. Family became a dynamic, evolving concept. 3. Your past does not define your future. Alexander's life proved that childhood challenges could be transformed into powerful motivation. His professional success was not just a personal achievement, but a testament to resilience. The Rodriguez narrative challenged conventional narratives about success, family, and forgiveness. They demonstrated that human connections are complex, nuanced, and capable of extraordinary transformation. To anyone listening, Alexander concluded, your story is not determined by your circumstances. It's shaped by your response to them. His final message was both a personal testimony and a universal call to compassion. Forgive, but don't forget. Understand, but don't excuse. Love unconditionally. As the audience rose in a standing ovation, the story of the Rodriguez family became more than a personal journey. It became a roadmap for healing, a reminder that our deepest wounds can become our greatest sources of strength.